When you think of the most iconic figures in film, who comes to mind? I'm sure you're thinking Darth Vader, Indiana Jones, Morbius, but on my list, there's a special goofy little spaceman. The Toy Story films have such a strong main cast, but I think it's safe to say that the fan favorite is Buzz. I mean, I don't see Slinky getting a spin-off movie, but you know I'd be the first in the theater to see that. But this popularity is of course warranted. Like millions, Buzz was a massive part of my childhood. It's always an absolute joy to go back and relive those memories to find he's still just as brilliant as I remember. But, yeah, there is a but, it absolutely breaks my heart to see how they've treated my boy in the recent years. So, as the title of the video suggests, today I'll be going over all 5 of the movies he's been in, explaining why 3 of them are peak fiction and why I don't feel the other 2 justify their existence. So let's start off on a high note with a trip back to 1995. Alongside Bon Jovi's These Days, Toy Story 1 was the best thing to come out that year. Toy Story 1 not only made its mark as the first ever fully 3D animated film, but with its intelligent humor and fantastic characters, both traits that apply to our beloved Space Ranger. Buzz serves as the catalyst for conflict in Toy Story's, well, story. Woody's perfect world as Andy's favorite toys flipped upside down with the new man in town. And can we just appreciate the direction they took his character? They could have so easily went for the basic arrogant douchebag making Woody's life miserable, but instead he's this goofy, delusional spaceman who thinks he's the real deal. Buzz is so funny, and the best part is he doesn't even realize it. The way things just continue to work out for him to feed this delusion is entertaining for an audience of any demographic. And Woody's reactions to said conveniences are honestly a large part of what makes this movie. They are the dynamic duo.
They're gonna eat us, Buzz! Do something quick!
Shield your eyes! It's not working. I recharged it before I left. It should be good for now.
You idiot! You're a toy!
The development of their friendship always feels like such a privilege to witness every time I rewatch this film. Every initial argument is a scene to look forward to, filled with comically over-the-top remarks, all of which are so quotable. Whether it's his monologue in the car, the introduction, the mask scene, Buzz's gag never gets old. But then the film brilliantly uses Buzz's realization as a screeching halt that is the midpoint. There's this huge tonal shift in which the once comically confident astronaut is now unsure of his own self-worth. Sure, there's some jokes here and there, but once we get to this scene, the writers don't sugarcoat just how depressed and worthless he really feels. To build off that, the writers then have Woody's development align with Buzz's. It's because of each other that they can grow. Woody learns this humility from Buzz, and in turn, he tells him just how much he's loved and cherished when he needed to hear it most. It's such a beautiful character dynamic with an incredibly satisfying conclusion. I always have the biggest smile on my face whenever I watch these two ultimately overcome their differences and find their way back to Andy in such a goated final action sequence. So now the question is, how do you follow that up? Toy Story 2 is considered to be a perfect sequel by many, which is funny when it was originally planned to go straight to DVD. But that claim is absolutely right. Toy Story 2 genuinely improves on damn near every aspect of its predecessor. But despite every challenge that comes with writing a good sequel, I'd argue that one of the hardest tasks comes back to characters. You want them to be consistent, but you also don't want to regress them after they've gone through such a satisfying arc. John Lasseter tackled this problem in 2 different ways. Woody, as the protagonist, goes through an arc that evolves from his first one, and Buzz is now manning the B-plot as a supporting character. Now, let's make this clear. Him being a supporting character is not a bad thing. Sure, he doesn't really have an arc in this film, but that's okay because A, he's already gone through one, and B, he's not the focus of this film. I mean, what are you gonna do? Take the spotlight away from Jessie? Supporting characters play a crucial role, and Buzz's presence in Toy Story 2 exemplifies that. The writers acknowledge and embrace his previous arc, and because of that, he can serve as the person that fights to keep Woody in line. They respect and highlight his intelligence as he formulates a plan to find Woody's kidnapper. They showcase his leadership qualities as he leads the party to Al's toy barn. And when they reach Woody, they keep Buzz's ideals in check instead of making him a yes man. This quarrel between the two is probably my favorite scene in this film. Woody is so enamored by this life of fame and glamour that he forgets his true responsibility: being there for Andy when he needs him. And because they haven't regressed Buzz as a character, he can tell him the cold, hard truth here.
Somewhere in that pat of stuffing is a toy who taught me that life's only worth living if you're being loved by a kid. And I traveled all this way to rescue that toy. because I believed him.
Because of Buzz, Woody again grows as a person. Despite his reduced role, the writers remember what made the first film work so well and keep this core dynamic intact. But I think we're forgetting something. Because I spent a hot second praising how Buzz being an idiot in Toy Story 1 was fantastic. But how could they possibly replicate that if he's already come to terms with who he is? Belt Buzz is such a clever idea that it makes me jealous. The writers knew they struck gold in the first film, so they managed to capture that same delusion again without undermining what our Buzz has already gone through. Every old gag is referenced and made fun of. The helmet, the laser, his relationship with Zurg. Did I mention Zurg is in this movie?
I'll never give in. You killed my father.
No, Buzz. I am your father.
Peak fiction right there. So all in all, Toy Story 2, 10 out of 10, just enough water. But let's fast forward 11 years. Pixar isn't doing as financially great as they had hoped, so it's time to bring back their OG franchise with Toy Story 3. I know this is a hot take, but 3 just might be my favorite of the series. I revere how the film grows with its audience, focuses on a crucial part of a toy's life cycle, gives us the best Pixar villain since Syndrome, and closes off the trilogy better than anyone could have asked for. The funny thing is, actual Buzz is barely in this movie. When he is though, he's still intelligent, proactive, responsible, and again, isn't a yes man to Woody. He's got a mind of his own and sticks to his guns with sound reason. The two parting ways at the beginning is a split that makes sense on both sides, which logically transitions into the nightmare ensuing shortly after. Whether it's the ruthless children, the traumatized toys, or, well, Lotso, the daycare is effectively painted as this miserable prison. So naturally, Buzz being straight up violated and turned to a soldier loyal to Lotso raises the stakes plenty more. And even when he's this stern general, Buzz still says the funniest things like we've come to expect.
Buzz, we're your friends!
Spare me your lies, Temptress. Your emperor's defeated, and I'm immune to your bewitching good looks.
A lot of people call this the least humorous Toy Story, and that's probably true, but my gosh, Spanish Buzz is the funniest Pixar joke by a light year. Thank you. I'm here all week. He's only in the movie for like 10 minutes, but he makes those 10 minutes count. Every line, every gesture, every dance move is so charismatic and lively. OG Buzz has known Jessie for like 10 years and still hasn't made a move. Spanish Buzz practically proposes on the spot. He is my role model. Of course, Toy Story 3 actually does have a great narrative at the end of the day, with a lovely message and emotional moments to tie it up. Andy entrusts Bonnie with his old toys, and he, along with Woody and the gang, learned that sometimes letting go is for the best. Truly a lovely end to an essentially perfect trilogy. It's a good thing they didn't make any more movies after that. Right? I'd have to say Toy Story 4's biggest flaw is how it just throws character verisimilitude out the window. For those unfamiliar with this big fancy writing term I've thrown on screen, verisimilitude essentially equates to staying in line with the established rules of your world. When we use this term in the context of characters, it more so refers to how authentic and believable they're written to be within those established rules. My point is, Toy Story 4 remarkably fails in this department, as it is so hard to believe that this is the same Buzz. There is no consistency when you look at what the first 3 films established. In Toy Story 1 through 3, sure, he was delusional at first, but he still had the knowledge of a trained space ranger, and we see him using that knowledge multiple times. He was a smart and natural leader. Now, I have no idea what happened in between these 2 films, but Buzz is a bumbling fool throughout the entirety of Toy Story 4.
That little voice inside me would never leave me alone if I gave up. Who do you think it is? Who? The voice inside of you. Who do you think it is? Me? You know, my conscience? That part of you that tells you things, what you're really thinking? Fascinating.
You have got to be joking. And this isn't just a one-time gag either. The writers must have thought this was the funniest joke ever, so they proceed to perpetually have him think his voice box is his conscience. That's his entire character. Dozens of people got paid to say, yeah, this is a good direction to take a beloved character. I know he still gets more of a role than most toys in this film, who are lucky if they get one line. I mean, Jessie was the most well-written character of the second film, and here her sole purpose is to pop a tire. But to be honest, I think I'd rather have Buzz stay back as well if it meant he wouldn't be a total idiot. And yes, I know I praised Buzz for being an idiot in the previous films, but that was done in clever and logical ways. In Toy Story 1, it's part of his arc. In Toy Story 2, you have Belt Buzz. In Toy Story 3, you have his Spanish mode. In Toy Story 4, they just regressed his character. Sure, he has funny moments like every other Buzz, but every joke is to the detriment of his character. The detriment of the plot, actually.
Toss it in a drawer.
To infinity and beyond! Your backpack's in the antique store. Let's go!
Oh no, my backpack!
Is that not the laziest way possible that they could have progressed the plot? Literally, how? Unfortunately, this abomination of a motion picture is not the end of Buzz's fall from grace. My guy cannot catch a break. Because just 3 years later, Lightyear hit theaters. I didn't have sky-high expectations going in, and I certainly still had a good time, but man, there's so much more they could have done with Buzz here, and it is plain to see. The whole concept behind Lightyear is that it takes place in a world where Buzz actually is a space ranger. If I had to describe this iteration of Buzz in a phrase, it would be too safe. There really aren't any risks taken here. He's not an amazing protagonist, he's not abysmal either. Again, he is textbook serviceable. I do believe there are things to appreciate here. He's ambitious, takes responsibility for his mistakes, faces a genuine little emotional roller coaster at the beginning of the film, and he has an arc. If you squint. Okay, look, the main problem I have with Buzz here is that they don't really commit to establishing a flaw in his character. In Lightyear, his main thing to overcome is his arrogance. He crashes the ship in the opening act because he flies solo. He stubbornly runs the 4-minute course non-stop, and as a result, he sees the life of his friend flash before his eyes. Then for the majority of the film, it's about him learning to trust Hawthorne's daughter, and Taika Waititi for some reason. Why are you here? He does initially try to solve problems for himself, but it only takes one suggestion from the rookies for him to give their idea a shot. Yes, he does grow as a character, but because he goes through so little to do so, it's remarkably unmemorable. I genuinely think if they did something as little as make him a bit more of a jerk, it would do a noticeable amount of good for his arc. But instead, he's sort of this bland, cookie-cutter nice guy, which is actually to the detriment of the villain. Zurg in this film is Buzz from the past, which doesn't make sense because he's such a goody two-shoes. So why did he turn to the dark side? Did he hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Did I miss that part? It's just pretty goofy and contrived, but not offensively bad by any means. So slapping all these bad boys on a tier list relative to Buzz's role looks something like this. My guy had a good 15-year golden streak, but all good things come to an end, and recently my guy has not been able to catch a break. To be honest, it's hard for me to say whether I'd like to see him on the silver screen again. Well, thanks for watching anyway, Space Rangers. This is obviously a very different video than I'm used to making, so I'd appreciate any constructive criticism. Either way, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. I'm looking forward to a wonderful 2023 with y'all, and as always, I hope you have a fantastic day.